Good morning. This is Michael Graves at WFAN, The Fan. This morning, I would like to discuss several topics. We're going to start. We're going to start nationally, and then we're going to kind of draw ourselves back to local issues. But from a national perspective, I think that the NFL has a significant challenge, and Roger Goodell is at the center of a rather challenging situation. Um, and I think the issue is so great that Goodell has to really break it down into several different sections and issues. He's got the issue with the NFLPA. I think he and DeMaurice Smith just fundamentally do not get along. It is not the old Tagliabue relationship that he used to have with Gene Upshaw. It's a fundamentally I think combative relationship from the start. And I don't think that's all driven by Goodell. I think that the nature of DeMaurice Smith is that he's a fairly antagonistic person. Having met him and spent a little bit of time with him, I think he approaches things with a I think he came into the seat with a fairly pungent and aggressive style to begin with. I think that's almost how he took office, was to say that, hey, I'm going to do it bigger and better, and you guys have been laying down and taking too much stuff, and take it from the guy who's fairly small in stature, but but I'm willing to swing a big stick relative to his size and representing players. I think he just came in with an attitude that he was going to take on the world. But so I think you've got the DeMaurice Smith part of this. That's a challenge because it doesn't communicate that the NFL and the NFLPA are kind of working together in some respects. He obviously has ownership issues, but then I think you've got the major issues that have taken all the headlines behind the Ray Rice situation and the Peterson situation, and then others, secondarily and on a tertiary basis, whether or not it's the guy Brent from Dallas, who's now looks like he might be coming back this week. The fellow with the 49ers who had an issue that looks like he might be acquitted of. The situation in Carolina with more domestic abuse, or whatever's going to happen next. All of them fall into kind of the broader category of conduct unbecoming to the league and not representing the Shield well. I think if you're Goodell, that you've got to take a proactive stance immediately it's hard to say immediate and have had this already going on for several months now. But I think at some point, you need to look at an option that is out of the box and a game changer and put out the fire. I thought he should have done it a while ago. And I'm in the business of giving advice. When I am not here at the Fan, I have an advisory firm and I give advice. That's what I do. If I was advising Mr. Goodell on what to do, I would have said, put out the fire. The fire has to be put out. And whether or not he got every aspect of every nuance and every situation right or wrong, whether or not you said, okay, you know what, we were on the right side of this domestic violence issue or not, in terms of how we acted, reacted, what we said, how we brought his wife in front of 12 angry men and questioned her, and then how the team reacted and all the nuances and all the aspects of it. Whether or not it's that, whether or not it's the Peterson situation, or whether or not it's past DUIs and drinking issues. Not that there are not other issues in the league. There's always going to be an anomaly. There's always going to be something that's going to jump off the front page that's going to be out of this world. But in general, those are three of the bigger buckets that the one with kids is somewhat new. Domestic violence is an old one, and DUIs is an old one. So that's not new hat to the NFL nor any of the leagues, in fairness. Child abuse is a little bit of a new one. But if I'm Roger Goodell and I'm trying to put out the fire and do a game changer at a certain point, if there's people calling for his job, I don't know that that's necessarily right or wrong. I don't think Goodell's doing a bad job. I think we're all in uncharted territory. In fairness to Goodell, we are all in uncharted territory. So we can all say what we could have done and should have done, but this had been dealt with in a certain fashion for a long time in the league. So to now act like this is a new Goodell issue that he brought to the table somehow, or that his mismanagement or continuing to manage it in a similar fashion is all of a sudden all wrong, I don't think it's fair to him. But the game changer to me for Goodell is this. If you're making $44 million a year, which Mr. Goodell is, I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to commit, me personally, whether or not all of my critics can line up against me and say, you know what, I've been on the wrong side of these issues for a long time. I haven't been proactive enough. I haven't been strong enough. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. You know what I'm going to do, folks? I'm going to kill all the noise. I make $44 million a year. I'm going to commit, of my personal salary, $1 million per NFL team, and I am going to kill the noise. Well, $1 million per NFL team per NFL city. And I'm going to divide that money amongst organizations that support domestic abuse, child abuse, and DUIs, whatever it may be, in any local city. So I'm going to put up $1 million per city for each NFL team. So let's deal with round numbers. Let's just say, for argument's sake, we're talking about $30 million, right? He can amortize that over, like people do when they're donating money. He can amortize that over 3 years. He doesn't have to take a bite. I'm not counting Mr. Goodell's money for him. But I'm just suggesting that if you were to divide $30 million over 3 years, you take a $10 million haircut on your salary, you and your family could probably still survive on $33 million. Again, using round numbers. I can add a little bit, but I'm just using round numbers for those folks playing along at home. Go from $44 million to $33 million for the next 3 years. Then history will reflect that there was a watermark that Mr. Goodell said, at this point, I personally drew the line in the sand. I was proactive. I took a stand. And this is what I did. And maybe I didn't get it right all the way along, folks. Maybe I didn't have the reaction that I should have originally with Ray Rice. Maybe I didn't do the right thing because I didn't anticipate. Although I have daughters, I didn't anticipate how society was going to look at this. Although because he had daughters, maybe he was more sensitive to Janae Rice pleading and crying in front of him and saying, hey, look, please don't take away our livelihood, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know all the nuances. I just know if he got it wrong at any point, if he were to put up $1 million per city, he could start to kill the noise. Then I would say, you know what? Don't just put up $1 million. I would say I'm going to put up $1 million, and I'd ask each owner of each city to put up $1 million and match me. That's what I would do. And then I would say to the NFL Players Association, Mr. DeMaurice Smith, you've got a lot of mouth around a lot of these issues, and these are your players. I would start to challenge them and say, why don't you guys put up $1 million per city also? So now, if we all put up $1 million per city, if I, Roger Goodell, out of my personal salary do it, if I ask each owner in each city to match my fund and put up $1 million, and then I ask the NFL Players Association to put up $1 million per city, well, now we've got a $100 million fund that we as NFL executives, players, and the Players Association and the owners of these teams have put up to say, you know what? This is important to us, folks. We're drawing a line in the sand. This is the high watermark for us as a league where we decided that league values means something. And I think you kill the noise once and for all. You're still going to have critics who are going to try and come out of the woodwork. Yeah, sure. But guess what? At the end of the day, if $100 million doesn't get you to shut up, then you can't win these people over anyway. But at least you will have demonstrated that you were at the right side of an issue at a given time. I'm Michael Graves. That's my first segment on The Fan. We'll be back in a few moments. Thank you. Good morning. Michael Graves here on The Fan. Back from the break. Let's go into Giants and Jets. It's football season, and I think if you're here in New York, this is not a good time for the gang. It's really, really not. Um, I almost don't even know where to start. I'm at a loss for words, and that's not really my strong suit. Is to be at a loss for words. But you almost, as you start to pull apart the layers of the onion, you almost feel like the whole building. You start to wonder: is the whole new building and the whole new stadium? Is there something? Did we mess up by tearing down the old stadium? That's where my mind first goes. It's like I can't remember a time, and maybe this is just my selective, recollection, but I just can't remember a time in, I don't know, the recent, call it 20, 25 years, where it feels like both teams have been so non-competitive and without any hope, like not even like they're going to kind of find their way. They're going to pull it out of the weeds. We got beat this week, but then we're going to rebound here. There's a game plan. There's a long-term strategy. I don't see it. We could start with Giants or we could start with Jets. I don't see it in either camp. Now, I do think that the Jets issues are deeper, obviously from a historic perspective, if nothing else, but I think the levels of dysfunction and potential contamination or cancer, whatever you want to call it, in the organization, I think the issues in the Jets are a lot deeper, because I think that they potentially, with respect to, respectfully to Mr. Johnson, I think they respectfully go all the way up the ladder to the C-suite in Mr. Johnson himself. And, in a lot of cities, I travel a lot, and I hear people in different cities always talk about, are they football guys? Has anybody ever turned on their TV and looked at Woody Johnson? Have you heard him on MSNBC, CNBC, talking about business? Have you ever looked at him and said, he looks like a football guy? He sounds like a football guy. Is there anything about him that gives you a football impression other than the fact that he owns a football team? He doesn't look the part. He doesn't sound the part. He doesn't ingratiate himself that way. He doesn't even project himself that way. Now, some of that style, and you can't say that that's everything, but he just doesn't come across as one of the guys or a football guy. He's certainly not a big guy, and I'm not saying you got to be a big guy to be a football guy. You could be a little guy, and Eddie DeBartolo was a little guy, but he came across as more of a football guy as a little guy. And DeBartolo might have been, 5'6", 5'7", 5'8". So he wasn't a big guy, but he was, there was some gravitas about him. There was some, and I missed that with the Jets. But moving out in the owner suite, I think you then go to to Isaac and the GM situation. I don't think he has done a great job. I don't think he is deserving of an opportunity to stay for more of the same. I think for your folks who grew up, I grew up as a New Yorker. The Jets have been bad since I've been born. Okay? Let's just say that out loud. Let me say that out loud. I'm 47. The Jets have basically been bad since I've been born. It's more or less, I'm right around, Joe Willie time in the heyday. I got that. But essentially, we haven't really been there if you're a Jets guy. Now I'm sensitive to the Jets. There was a period where I loved the Jets at a period in life in the Klecko, Gastineau, Marty days, etc. I was there. I used to play defensive line, so I enjoyed the Jets then. But right here, right now, Rex, Isaac, Woody Johnson, the whole thing is broken. I think Rex has got to go. I think Isaac has got to go. They need a cultural change and a cultural shift in the Jets organization from the top down. Now, I don't think Johnson is going to go. So, therefore, as the owner, I don't think he's selling the team. So, therefore, I think you make a change at GM. I think you make a change at coach. Doesn't make Rex a bad guy. Rex, I think, needs to be a defensive coordinator somewhere. He's a great guy. Rex seems like a great guy to go have a beer with. hang out with on vacation, whatever. And he's a player's coach. I get all that. I think the inmates are running the joint, and I don't think Rex has real control over the situation. And frankly, he pisses me off and annoys me when he gets into his thing every week about, hey, the guys, oh yeah, we're playing really hard. Oh, we're ready. I mean, that thing I heard before Detroit about, oh, well, hey, we don't care if we play in Buffalo or we play in Detroit. I mean, hey, well, look, we're ready to lace them up. We go left, we go right. We just get in the plane and we move, and you drop us out of the plane, and we're chomping at the bit. Really, Rex? Really? I feel like at this point, New York needs to give you one giant slap. The whole thing, my team is ready. Your team is not ready, sir. Your team is not ready, and you have not prepared them. That's your shortcoming. So that's Jets. They got a few core players that are good, mostly on the D-line. They got a couple of offensive linemen. I get a little bit scared for 10 seconds. I get a little bit scared when I hear some of the offensive line getting too philosophical. Nick Mangold, I'm good with. I heard DeBrickashaw Ferguson. I'm not against a big brother being bright and well educated. That's a beautiful thing from UVA, et cetera. But when I hear him and Willie Colon on TV, on radio, starting to kind of wax poetic and become philosophical about what's right and what's wrong and how they get along and it almost kind of romancing their losses, I'm not in the mood. Let me shift to Giants for a hot second. I've done the Jets thing. That's kind of dead. Giants. This one's more of a struggle because number one, I'm a Giants fan. That's where I'm at. That's where I live. That's Giants. It's tough to say that your Super Bowl winning coach is not the guy who's now won a couple of Super Bowls for you. It's tough to say that the game has passed him by and that he's not the guy. And I don't even know if that's the case, and I don't even know if it's fair. I just wish, I guess if I had a wish for the Giants, it was that Coughlin stayed in place and that and that he's still the guy there, because I'm not necessarily hearing that he's losing the locker room. Frankly, more so than Coughlin, I'm more concerned with Eli not being a leader. If I were to cut to the chase, that to me I view as a greater condemnation of the organization than I do Coughlin. And Eli is just not, people talk about being a leader of men. He just doesn't strike you as the guy who's going to lead you anywhere. I don't, for me, when I see a quarterback, I like to see a quarterback who, I don't know if he's gonna lead us to the bar, if he's gonna lead us to go meet some chicks, if he's gonna go lead us and host the poker game at his house, if he's gonna go lead us and we're gonna go have dinner somewhere. I want the guy to feel like he's at least gonna lead the offensive line and his guys and his troops somewhere. I don't get that from Eli. And the whole he's unemotional, it's kind of like I almost go back to the reputation of Purvis Ellison way back where they used to say, yeah, well, he's never nervous, Purvis. Yeah, he's never nervous, but he's never doing anything. That's how I felt about his career. I'm not saying that Eli hasn't done anything. I'm saying that obviously he's won a couple of Super Bowls. He has played well. We could have worse quarterbacks in the league. I understand that. I feel like Eli Manning should go to Peyton Manning football camp. Learn how to inspire a few folks, get some energy, press the envelope a little bit, and become a leader. Start to press the game a little bit and have people follow you. You have ability. You got a gun. You're already 6'5", 6'6". Throw the rock, inspire somebody, and encourage somebody to step up. Michael Graves on the Fan. That's Giants Jets. I'll be back in a few.
Okay, that was really good. Now let's shift one more topic. Baseball or basketball? You choose it. I'll give you a minute, and then you let me know when you're ready to roll, Mike.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Cool.
Michael Graves here on the Fan, WFAN. Let's turn the page to basketball. We are, we're in the early stages of basketball, and I guess it's something that although it doesn't look like we've got a great nor robust season in front of us, folks, here in the New York area, with neither the Knicks nor the Brooklyn Nets. We got to talk about basketball because it's number one, it's basketball season. Number two, the whole world, I think, if I've got my info correct, I believe the whole world is going to converge here for the NBA All-Star game. So we're going to become in Brooklyn. So we're going to become whether we like it or not, we're going to become the center of the NBA universe at some point around the second week in February when the NBA All-Star game is here, which is probably going to bring even greater focus to what we are doing as a city football-wise. I'm sorry, basketball-wise. If you're a Knicks fan at this point, I don't even know what to tell you. I think that the Knicks have a fundamental problem. You can get into the thing about ownership and how seriously the owners take it and whether or not they really want to be there or whether or not they really want to be in the television business and whether or not that's their bigger concern is television business and owning the stadium. And I understand that there are plenty of folks who take issue with the ownership of the Knicks. Say what you will, they've at least tried to be proactive and tried to bring in Phil Jackson, which is out of the box and has some potential promise to it. I think at the end of the day, though, that whether or not it's Jackson, whether or not it's bringing in Fisher as the coach, and whether or not you're trying to get him to, do the triangle, et cetera, at the end of the day, the beginning, middle, and end of Knicks basketball, for better or for worse, centers around Mr. Carmelo Anthony. And I believe that it is fundamentally flawed logic to think that you are really going to build a championship team today around what amounts to be an offensive superstar. He is an offensive superstar without a doubt. But he does not play defense. He is not a team player. And we ought to be able to say that out loud without feeling condemnation about it. Okay? We shouldn't have to apologize because guess what? He's not apologizing for throwing a rock up 40 times a game. So why do we got to sit here and apologize and act like he's playing defense? Or like we said something wrong if we said, hey, guess what? Carmelo doesn't play defense. He doesn't play defense, and he's not a great team player. Guess what? There was a guy way back when he used to play with the Philadelphia 76ers, a guy named George McGinnis. He wasn't known as a defensive stopper. He wasn't. He was an offensive player. His name was George McGinnis. He used to throw up the rock. If you were to look at somebody who was popular, who's known as a nice guy, but not a defensive stopper, a guy like George Gervin, I think he's in one of the top 50 NBA players of all time, certainly in the Hall of Fame. Not known as a defensive stopper. He's the Iceman. He finger rolled. That's what he did. He didn't break down and stop people on defense. Now, having said that, I think that I think beyond Carmelo just being an offensive player and not playing defense, it's kind of like going back to Eli. I got a similar criticism for Carmelo that I do for Eli. You're not a team leader. You need a team leader. You can't invest $100 million plus in one guy, have him be the center of the universe, have him be the pivotal player on your team, and not expect the very best from him. What worked about Jordan, beyond Jordan being Jordan, is that Jordan played offense and he played defense. As much as everybody wants to talk about Jordan dunking on people and taking off on the foul line and three-pointers and being clutch and all the above, Jordan was also first-team defense every single day. Every single day, every single year, Jordan came out and stuck people up. First-team defense, stole the ball, broke people down. That says to people, I take my business serious on both sides of the court. And then he did the off-court stuff. I've heard great stories about how Carmelo's now, about how he's going to build, he's being his own brand and he's being his own businessman and he's thinking long-term and having strategies. And hey, look, that's great. We can all applaud that. Nobody wants brothers to leave the NBA and NFL and not just brothers, but people, period, to leave those leagues and find themselves destitute and bankrupt a couple of years out of the league. That's not good for the league. That's not good for them as individuals. That's not good for communities. Not good for a whole lot of stuff. So I applaud Carmelo having a business perspective. Okay, Dave Winfield used to show up in the Yankee locker room and bring his briefcase to work and wear a suit and tie. That's what he did because he called it business. That's how he regarded himself. So I don't take issue with Carmelo doing that. What I take issue with is, Carmelo, you don't play defense. You're not building a team. You're not ingratiating other players. You're not bringing guys you're not creating a culture in the Knicks that says, we're going to be tough at both ends of the court. We're going to play hard. We're going to listen to the coach. We're going to represent ourselves in a certain fashion, and we're going to give New York the best we can every single day in, day out, on and off the court. That's my criticism of Carmelo. And like I said, it comes down to being a leader of men. He's going to thrill you with some highlights. He can shoot. He can step over half court, and he can pull up from there. On the dribble, off the dribble, create his own shot. I got it. So it's like Eli throwing the deep ball. But what are you doing to bring other people on and make other people better? What are you doing in that department, Carmelo? That's where he falls woefully short. Then I think there's nuances beyond that of some younger players on the team that I just don't think are high character guys. And I wonder whether or not the owners of the Knicks have the ability to discern who is a high character guy or not. And you need some high character guys on your team to go along with the guys who may be superstars or may have some flaws or may have some issues. You got to have a couple of stalwarts. You know, there's a reason why in football in New England, beyond talking about Brady, one of the things that also works for Belichick up in New England is having a guy like Vince Wilfork holding down the D-line, also being a prominent African-American. So there's a balance of black-white dynamics in that organization. There's a balance of a big guy in the locker room who's a straightforward, no-nonsense guy. I don't see where the Nets, a long time ago, used to have a guy named Buck Williams. Buck was known as just a solid citizen, a good guy who played on the Nets. Good guy, good character guy, on and off the court. Did his work, rebounds. He wasn't a dynamic offensive player, but did his work. We need that. Turning to the Nets, similar, I think the Nets have some better. The Brooklyn Nets, I can't even get used to calling them the Brooklyn Nets yet, but the Brooklyn Nets, I think, have some better character, but they're just long in the tooth. I mean, Garnett, I think, is a good guy. Williams, I think, to some extent. I think they've got some young guys who are interesting. I think sorry about the little voice there. Whoo. But I think they got some young guys who are interesting. I think my man from Duke is a solid citizen. I'm not quite there. I'm not quite there with everybody on the team, and as far as once we start going into Brook, the center, I'm not sure if he's. I think character-wise he's there. I don't think ability-wise he's there. You got to have a blending of. You can't have all good character guys around who are just who aren't winning any games either. That's not going to be good. But you got to have a balance of character and ability and kind of leaders of men. And I think both the Knicks and the Nets are operating without a rudder. I mean, as I look in the future of New York sports, of our top 6 teams, let's just deal with baseball, football, basketball. I don't know where the light is at the end of the tunnel. Just globally, if I just said to myself, who's going to be the next team that's really in contention? Who would that be? Do I see light at the end of the tunnel of Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Yankees, Mets? Where And then you say to yourself, like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get to the point where there's no hope in New York? Like, there's always been a little glimmer somewhere that we could be on the cutting edge. We could just be just around the corner. I don't see it in anybody's organization today, and that's a fundamental challenge. I'm Michael Graves at The Fan. I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate you guys listening to me, and I hope to share with you once again my thoughts and opportunities about Knicks, Nets, New York sports right here on The Fan. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.